Today, I want to bring a little bit of clarity into the confusion of these three different sound symbols, all talking about different R sounds. Some of them exist in English, but some of them don't. So let's get started. The first one we'll have a look at is the IPA sound symbol that looks like an upside down lowercase r. And this is the standard R sound that you can find in British and American English. For example, in the words red or right. And how do we form this sound? Again, I think it's sometimes quite difficult to really know how to form r, since you cannot look into my mouth and see how I form it. So I've made this little model of a tongue for you, and usually we call it a retroflex sound. So that means the tip of your tongue moves a little bit back here, and this happens near the bump behind your teeth, just a little bit further back in the post-alveolar position. So you have the tip of your tongue rolled back. This is why we call it retroflex. R. And the sides of the tongue also kind of move up a little bit, so r. Now, sometimes though, you could also form this r sound in a bunched position, especially if you don't make it in isolation. Usually it's within a word. And we call it bunched because this is the tip of your tongue here. You can see it's not rolled in, it's not retroflex. But the back here is sort of gets thicker, and this is how we form the r sound, and we call it a bunched r. So you could try both of those out. You will hear both of those. You have these two options, retroflex or bunched. And like I said, the IPA symbol is the upside down lowercase r. Now, but this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because you might think, I have never seen this sound symbol before. In my student book or course book or book on pronunciation, there's usually simply a normal lowercase r. And that is correct. Very often, especially with resources and books in Europe, in the UK, you will see a different sound being used. And it's just a lowercase r. And I think that was just done because, of course, it is much easier for the students to understand that this is supposed to be an r because it just looks like the letter. But this lowercase r is actually a sound in the IPA, and it refers to a very different R sound. We call it a trill. Now, this one does not exist in English, but you can hear it in Spanish and also in Scottish English. So what does it sound like? Here's an example word from Spanish. Perro, perro, rrr. If I elongate it, it's rrr. Of course, you would not have such a long sound in a word. It's just for a demonstration. And how do you roll your R like that? Rrr. Now, what I do is, I'm going to use my model for that again. You have to, again, sort of put the tip of your tongue in this retroflex position. You want to breathe out and use the breath and sort of the strength from that to let the tip of your tongue flap against your palate. R, r. And this happens sort of behind the alveolar ridge. That's the little bump of your teeth. It's further back. R, r. And so you really do need a little bit of effort here and a little bit of air. R, r. And it kind of flaps against the palate, and that is what we call a trill. And so, like I said, you would have it in Spanish, perro, perro. And you also can find it in Scottish English. So here people wouldn't say right, but right. Sounds very different straight away. This trilled R is also common in German, but only really in the south of Germany in some dialects, but you can also hear it in Austria and Switzerland. and of course in many other languages. Speaking of German, this brings us to the other R sound symbol that you might have seen. It looks like a capital R letter, but it is an IPA sound symbol. And this one refers to the standard German R sound as in rot. Now you can hear it already. It has a different quality to it. Let's listen one more time. Rot. R. R. This one also has a little bit of vibration going on, but it does not involve the tip of my tongue. In fact, let's listen one more time. R. This one comes from further back in the throat. Now, if you open your mouth and you just say ah, or maybe you want to even sing it, and you look into a mirror, ah, you can see right at the back of your throat this little velum hanging. And again, I made a little model so it's easier for you to understand. I know this looks a little bit strange. Apologies, but I thought some plasticine would help. So if you open your mouth really wide and you take a good look at the back of your throat, you will see something like this hanging there. And of course, if you sing or make a vowel sound such as an ah, you can hear it, like you can see it really well. It just hangs freely. Now, what we want to do is we want to get this little thing vibrating. So let's just practice together. R, R. And really, what happens is it's an uvular sound. That's what we call it, really. We lower this a little bit and it kind of flaps against the back end of our tongue. R. I know. Isn't it amazing what you can do with your tongue and all your articulators? I mean, come on, it's incredible how many sounds the human sort of mouth is able to produce. And you know, we don't even use that many sounds in English. We could have a lot more. But this one, like I said, it's not really a sound that we use in English, but you can hear it in German and other languages, okay? And you probably have seen the sound symbol. So this one is a r, r sound at the back of your throat. So let's have them all together one more time. We had, first of all, the upside down symbol. That was the standard R in English, as in red or right. Then we had the normal lowercase r letter, and that was the trill, r, r. And then last but not least, number 3 was the capital R sound symbol, and that was the German R that is formed at the back of your throat, and it's r, r. So all 3 together, r, 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 and r, r. This is almost a little bit like an animal sound, I would say. If you make it really for a long time, it sounds like a dog a little bit. So very different sound quality, as you can hear. Now, before we finish though, there is another sound symbol that looks very much like an R, like a lowercase r, so you might be confusing this one with the one we had before. But don't mix it up. This one is not an R sound. We call it a flap T or a tap. And this is a sound we sometimes form instead of saying T. So here's an example. In the word butter, I just had a T sound here, aspirated even, butter, T. But very often when we speak fast, and certainly in American English, you would not hear butter, but what you hear is butter, butter. So there's just this light T, and that is the sound referring to this sound symbol. And so don't get them confused. This is a really different sound, but I know the symbol looks a little bit like an R. I hope you've learned something new today, and this was fun for me as well because I could play with a little bit of plasticine to make some models for you. And let me know in the comments below what other pronunciation topics you would like to learn about next.